The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM. Welcome to the 2024 School Counselors Collaborative Summer Academy. This comes out of the Center for Educational Media, that's here, part of the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University. We are a center that is devoted to and committed to providing professional development to K-12 teachers across Tennessee and elsewhere through media and through using this space right here. So we're a professional development center and a media production center. I am so happy to introduce the Dean of the College of Education who wants to greet you this morning. So Dean Portia Cone, if you will join us right here.
Am I on? Oh, I am on. I used to be a teacher for 7 or 8 years, so I feel like I have a teacher voice, but they want me on the mic, so I shall oblige. First of all, thank you all for joining us. I'm just here to bring you greetings from the College of Education and MTSU. I am so excited to see you all. I don't know if I met you all last year. Last year was my first year. So I think I saw a few of you all last year when I was just coming on board. So I am here. I am excited about this work. Laura and her team and the panelists, they do such a phenomenal job of putting on the collaborative. I hope that you all enjoy. We are really invested in this work. If there is anything that you need from us, or if there are any additional ways we can partner with you, please let us know. Don't hesitate to reach out. And once again, thank you all for joining us at 8 o'clock in the morning. I know that it's the summer, and you would probably, perhaps, prefer to sleep in just a little while longer. So we really don't take this lightly, and we thank you for the work that you do in the schools. We thank you for the work that you do with the families. And if you have not been told, I say thank you from the parents as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
You can have that. You can take that. Dean Cone, thank you. Okay, our next introduction. Very important person in this School Counselors Collaborative Initiative, Dr. Tiffany Wilson. Would you join us up here, please? So glad to see you. Dr. Wilson has been with us since we started this School Counselors Collaborative. She is, we kind of gave birth to this, didn't we? Yes. So she's been the voice, first of all, of a former school counselor, as a current professor in the program, and also as a liaison between school counselors and MTSU. And so she has helped us find wonderful practitioners in Tennessee. She has helped us narrow down some topics. She has given us professional insight, and plus she's just a wonderful human being, and a mom, and a colleague, and a professional. And you see all the heads doing this, Dr. Wilson. So we know, they know, everyone knows. So we are thrilled she is here today. She'll be facilitating Q&A today. And so when you have a question, if she wants to do a follow-up question to kind of elaborate, she'll be doing that, but she will facilitate Q&A today. Dr. Wilson, anything you'd like to say?
Thank you so much for being here, and it is so good to see so many familiar faces, and just thank you for supporting this initiative since day one, and we'll have a good time today.
Yes, okay. We'll see you all day. All right, thank you, Dr. Wilson. All right, so let's get ready then for our first session, Miss Sarah Puffer. So join us up here. All right, so Sarah Puffer, professional counselor, school counselor, McFadden School of Excellence here in Murfreesboro. Ms. Puffer was nominated, and we are thrilled to have her here today. So I will let you, Ms. Puffer, continue your introduction. Tell us about yourself, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
So we're so glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you
Okay.
so much. So I do have a slide and I'm sorry if it's loud. I also have a teacher voice, but I also have a mic on, so I'm trying to be mindful of that. If I'm too loud, just give me and I'll try to be quieter. My name is Sarah Puffer, and I am a school counselor at McFadden. I will give you a little bit of background on the next slide. I had an interesting journey into the world of school counseling, and I think it's important because it's really brought me where I am today, and it's taught me a whole lot, and so I'm super excited. Before I start, I just want to say it's an honor to be here. It was an honor to be nominated. It is something that I've always wanted to do. I love presenting. I love presenting to my faculty. I've never gotten to present to a group of my peers this large. So I'm super excited, and I hope that you find what I have to say helpful. Dr. Clark and Mrs. Marsh were very instrumental in helping me sort of narrow my focus. If you know me, you know that there was a list of probably 50 different items that they said that school counselors wanted to hear about. And so when I got back to them, I think I said, well, I can talk about 48 of those. And they were like, woo, okay, well, let's try to format that into a way that makes sense. So what we came up with is this notion of creating systems for connection in school counseling. And so before we start, a little bit about myself. I was born in Ohio. I went to OU. I had a dream to be in broadcast journalism. I wanted to be the next Katie Couric. That's why I ended up at Ohio University. They have a great journalism program. I actually did broadcasting for years, had a job offer at WBOY in Clarksburg, West Virginia, and did not take it. My heart was not in it. I just could not do it. I did several internships, and I'll never forget, it was an instrumental point in changing my career path. There was a very sad story that we were covering, and during the interview with parents of something horrifically tragic that had happened to a child, the reporter I was working with just kept looking at me because I could not stop crying. I just cried and cried and cried the whole time. And when we got back in the van, she said, "Are you sure this is really what you want to do?" And it wasn't. And I knew that at that point. But I had already put myself through school. And so I couldn't turn around at that point. So I finished my undergraduate degree and took a really different path. At that point, I moved out to Massachusetts. I did not work for the Patriots. My now husband, who I'd been dating for several years, is in football. He's not a coach. He's not a player. He does media relations, PR, which is, I've used that story so many times with kids because, of course, every child wants to be, most boys want to be in the NFL, or they want to be in the NBA, or they want to do something sports related. So it's been really helpful for them to understand that there's a lot of jobs that you can have in sports where you don't have to be on the field. It's wonderful if that's your dream, but this is a great backup. And so he worked really hard, was able to do that, was with the Patriots during their golden era and Super Bowls and all the things. So when I moved out there, I had no idea what I was going to do because I had a degree in something I didn't want to do. So everyone had always said, you need to work with kids, you need to be a teacher. And of course I ignored them because I wanted to do my own dream of being in journalism. So I instead went ahead and applied and worked for several years at a residential group home for adolescent females with severe emotional and behavioral disorders. I did physical restraints almost daily. It was the most instrumental point, I think, in my life in bringing me to counseling. We had a huge group counseling component of what we did. It was amazing and wonderful. And it was then that I knew, like, man, this is where my heart is. So I started there, and then I went into teaching. I was able to go and get a teaching license to teach special ed and also English at the middle school because of my minor in college. So we moved back to Tennessee because I really wanted to be near my family in Ohio. My husband works for the Titans, and I landed at Christiana Middle School as a 7th grade English teacher, which I loved. Really wanted to go into counseling. Just so happened that our counselor transitioned to another school. I was just finishing up my master's, and I was able to take her spot, so that was awesome. I was there for quite a few years, and I loved it, but I really wanted to be with the little people. My son at that point was at McFadden. He got accepted as a kindergartner, and the job that I had been hoping and praying for, the counselor prior to me had been there over 30 years, amazing, beautiful Susan Bryan, and she retired. And so I was able to take over her job, and that was awesome. I already knew it was a great place because my son was there. There's my school. Those are my people. That's my family plus my sweet mama. I brought my whole family out here. Everybody lives in Tennessee now. My mom, my dad, both my brothers. Those are my babies. That's my son with his dad, and they love that picture, so I added it in. They are with the king, Mr. Henry himself. So that is my winding road to here. And I share that because it really, I love my job. I love my people. I love what you all do. I think we are like the heart and soul of schools. I mean, honestly, I think I have the best job in my school, but also one of the hardest jobs in my school. And I would say the same thing for all of you. So if you can take anything from this presentation and use it and it's helpful, then I have succeeded. So I hope that will happen. I've created a Padlet that has everything that I'll share today. There's a QR code at the end that's linked to it. I don't care. I am very shareful. I'm not sure if that's an actual word, but I've just made it one. So I don't care if you take my name off it and just put your name on it. I've put everything I could think of on that Padlet, which you will have access to, and please use what you want. I put forms that I use. You can duplicate them. I just hope there's something that you'll find helpful, because I know for me, that was what I really needed. I needed something I could use that was helpful, that was already done. So this is my classroom. This is where I spend my days. The pictures are a little dark, I'm sorry, but it's because I have such beautiful light. I got new windows. I share that because I know everybody is not as lucky as I am to have that beautiful space. So just so you know, that's a glimpse of where I am. So some of the things you're like, well, how can she? Well, of course she can do that because she has that classroom. And I get it, right? We have to work with what we have. And so sometimes we don't have a classroom. All right, so why are systems so important? This is sort of what the presentation will center around today. Systems provide a proactive approach to school counseling versus a reactive approach. So much of what we do, some of it has to be reactive by nature, right? If something happens to a child, we have to react to it. If there's a situation going on with a family, we have to react to it. There's not much that we can do proactively in some situations. That being said, what has saved me from burnout and what has saved me from not wanting to be a school counselor anymore have been the systems that I have implemented so that my life is easier. Systems allow us to work smarter and more efficiently so that we can maximize our impact and effectiveness. I have learned through some trial and error and making myself very ill that I cannot be Superwoman, right? I sort of Superwoman in a lot of ways, and I tried to be, but if I try too hard, I am going to make myself sick, and I'm going to impact those people that I love the most. So I really have to work smarter, not harder. So that's what I'm trying to do. They help prevent burnout. I could do a whole presentation about self-care and burnout and what we should do versus what we actually do and what we have time to do. But I really feel like if we can implement some things to help us, we can just take a breath and breathe easier, and it will be so much better for us. And it helps with connection. We're not constantly spinning our wheels trying to keep our head above water, which I have definitely done. And those of you that are new-ish to the field of school counseling may be feeling like that, and maybe some of you that aren't newish still feel like that. But again, I hope that you can implement some systems next year that work for you so that you can lessen that feeling a little bit. So here's what we'll talk about today. Why are systems so important? We just covered that. And then I've categorized them into different categories. Systems for school-wide support, individual student support, classroom counseling, family support, staff support. data collection. And then again, as I mentioned, most everything that I mentioned in this Padlet, all the links, everything that I've created is linked to a school counseling collaborative Padlet. By a show of hands, how many people use Padlet already? Padlet, oh my goodness, you all have got to use Padlet. It's so good. You can use Padlet for free. Now, Rutherford County provides, like I have a bazillion Padlets, but you can do Padlet for free. I think they give you 3. If I were only going to do 3, I would make a personal Padlet for myself to house all of my items. I would make a parent/guardian Padlet that I would have, and then I would make a Padlet for my teachers. I have those 2, and it's helped tremendously just with organization and not having to send out the same thing 50,000 times that I've already given people. So that's been really helpful. All right, something new that we started this year that's been a huge help is called our student support team. We are an academic magnet school, so we're a little bit different. We don't have the same staff that everyone else has. We don't have interventionists. We don't have an RTI person. We have a much smaller staff. So our student support team includes myself, our principal, and our assistant principal. We only have one of each. It includes our special ed teacher and our instructional coach. There's 5 of us. We meet weekly for 1 hour. It's on the calendar. It's non-negotiable. We just make sure that we don't miss it. And what happens is if a student has an issue, academic, behavior, social, emotional, etc., and the teacher needs assistance, that's where the student support team comes in. So there is a form that you will have access to that they will fill out. So they've tried their interventions. They've tried their tier 1 interventions. And I like the form because it actually asks them what have they tried, right? So they have to give some background on what they've already done. So if they are sort of at the end of their rope and they need help, that's where we would come in. So they would fill out a form. We would talk about those kiddos in our meeting. They talk about the name, again, they list the name, the issues, the steps the teacher has taken, what has worked, and we also ask them what they've done that has not worked. So we talk about that as a team, and then we decide who will do what next. That's been super helpful for me because I am not trying to do all the things for all the people, which is sort of my personality and does not work well when I'm the only one in the building of my job. So that has really worked well for us. We can kind of divvy out the work and it's much more manageable. And then we have an Excel sheet that is filled out with who's going to do what. The teacher is notified of what the next steps are going to be. And we follow up on that student multiple times, pretty much until the problem, quote unquote, or the issue has been satisfied or until we've had to go. You know, sometimes it goes to a formal SAP meeting and we look at a SPED referral or a 504 referral. That's all part of the process, but this has really helped because it has forced teachers to identify who are those kiddos, what have I done, what do I need, and we have a formal plan where I can go back and say, okay, so this friend will not stop blurting out, right? And we have this blurt bubble sheet. How is this going? Are we using it? It kind of keeps all of us accountable to what we have said that we're gonna do. That has been a huge system that's been super helpful. We also do something at McFadden that's called Energy Bus, and it's based on the book, The Energy Bus for Kids by John Gordon. Raise your hand if you know that book. It is a great book. My elementary people, I know you know that book, right? It's a great book, and it's based on the 5 rules for life. So what we do, this is kind of, if you will, a student advocacy program. Most of the staff at the school are assigned a bus, and I mean pretty much everybody. All of our EAs have a bus. Our secretary has a bus. It's really great because everybody gets a chance once a month to meet with a group of students and really become connected to them. Students K through 5 are combined in a bus, and they keep that bus their entire time at the school. So if you come in kindergarten and you're on Mrs. Clancy's bus, you are on Mrs. Clancy's bus until you graduate 5th grade. And you are with the same children unless they obviously leave the school. So it is wonderful because you really get to know your bus, which is awesome, and you're what we call your bus driver. We meet once a month for about 40 minutes. I plan the lesson based either on the Energy Bus rules, or sometimes there's something that's going on in the school, right, and we need to address it school-wide. So that's a time where we can plan our Energy Bus lesson around that. We have 3 school rules. We had an issue a while back with respect, which is one of our school expectations. So everybody in the entire Energy Bus lesson did a whole 40 minutes about respect, and there's always an activity and discussion. We have our 5th graders a lot of time lead that, which really helps them. It's been awesome to see. They really take ownership in that. It's been great. The teachers love it because they didn't have to do anything for it. They just have to come and facilitate the lesson. It really, honestly, when I do my minute meetings at the beginning of the year, one of my questions is, who do you feel like you could go to in the school if you have an issue? And almost every kiddo will say, my energy bus driver, which is so awesome because oftentimes it's not even a teacher. You know, our kindergartners, they don't even know that person when they start there. So it's been really wonderful. It can be structured in a lot of different ways, but it has been a game changer for us in terms of when kids have issues. Sometimes when we have to do check-in and check-out, the energy bus driver is the person that we'll have that kiddo check in and check out with because they have formed such a strong relationship. So it has been really great for us. John Gordon has a lot of really good books. If you are interested, we've done several lessons on his other books as well. I was talking to some of my colleagues about this morning. Morning meetings are one of our non-negotiables, and it took me a while to get that to be a non-negotiable. I had to do a little bit of kind kicking and screaming because it was really important to me, and that has been super helpful for us. So I have inserted myself into the morning meetings, which has also really helped me because I am not in the full rotation, very thankfully, which none of us should be, and our supervisor has worked really hard to make that not happen. I am in a mini rotation with the librarian, but I still am able to get my curriculum out without having to repeat it 85 times because I do a Zoom lesson. So I will go on Zoom and I will record a short lesson, and then every teacher on Tuesdays will play that lesson. So again, that's often centered on something I need to push out to the students. Oftentimes it's something that's going on in the school, but it's been really helpful for me because I don't have to teach that so many times, right? That's been a great thing that we've done. Then on Thursday, I provide a Canva review, which if you don't use Canva, that's another one that's like super awesome. It's wonderful for presentations. So I do a Canva review that has an activity and a circle discussion on Thursdays. So I'm pushing out Tuesday and Thursday morning meeting. The other Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the teachers have an option to really do what they want. Our instructional department sends out awesome stuff for teachers to use. There's also something called First 5 that is amazing. It's really, really great. It arrives in the teacher's inbox at 6 o'clock in the morning every day, and it gives them an entire list of things that they can choose. Greeting students at the door, here's the question of the day, here's a little video. They can pick and choose what they want to do. No work. They don't have to do any work for it, but it's a wonderful way for them in a very short time to connect with their kiddos, which we have found, and I'm sure that you will agree, the number one issue that we have with student behavior, it is when the kids aren't connected to the teacher and they don't want to do well for the teacher. That's a huge one for us. It just is. So this really helps with that. And again, this is a way for me to push in my curriculum and reinforce expectations without having to do it all. And that has been huge. This is a system that has really been helpful for us. We also have mandatory peace corners or calm down corners in every room. That has been huge for us. Teachers can make them however they would like. This is in my room. This is just mine that I have. I do a video lesson. That's one of my lessons that I push out on that Tuesday morning meeting on how to use it. But they also have flexibility to set their own guidelines. So this is very helpful because when we have those smaller level traumas that come up that are really big to the student, but maybe don't necessarily need a call to the counselor, this has been really helpful. And honestly and truly, when you think about it, some of our teachers that were resistant, I was like, come on, y'all. You have a calm down corner. Somewhere you have one, right? Mine happens to be my master bedroom closet. If I need to cry, that is where I'm going, right? I have a place where I can just decompress, have a minute. My children, thankfully, have not yet figured out that that's where mom is, and it's wonderful. Like, that's what I need. Everybody needs that, especially our kids. So that has been really, really helpful for us. All right, we also have a school-wide program called Mustang of the Month, which is like our Student of the Month character education program. So we use something called Core Essentials, which we purchase. It is very cost-effective for everything that it provides. There's so much information that they give you. Wisdom, compassion, kindness, integrity, honesty. I'm trying to think about all the different words that we've used at different times. They're different every year. Our principal reads a very short blurb every single morning of that month on announcements. There's signage around the school. They give you all kinds of things you can print. I put that around the school. Usually I put it like near the restrooms, above the water fountains. We touch on it during morning meetings. They give you a family newsletter that we post on our dojo or send via email. And then at the end of the month, they're selected by their teacher or their class for having best displayed that trait, right? So it's kind of like that whole Student of the Month, but based on this character trait. And so we have a Mustang of the Month party, and I love parties, so we do it big. I have a bubble machine, I have a disco lights and music, and ice cream sandwiches and certificates and character coupons, which I'll talk about in a minute. And so that really did not cost me a lot of money. Some of those are a one-time purchase. I'm sure that we all spend way more of our own personal money than probably our significant other might appreciate, but things like the ice cream sandwich, I do have to replenish that every month. But that's been wonderful, and we really try hard. We try to track it so that I have an Excel sheet where the teachers enter it every month, and then I try to send that out. You don't have to choose a child that's never been chosen. That if they don't display that trait, I don't want them to get a reward for it. But we also try to be really mindful of kids that we might miss. And maybe who can we just keep an extra eye on that might need that motivation, maybe who's really improved in that area. So that's another thing that we do that has been really helpful, and it's a system-wide something that we can do to encourage good behavior and citizenship. I have tried really hard to go away from sort of trinket type prizes, number one, because they're expensive and I don't really have all that money, but also I found that these character coupons have really been awesome for the kids. They love them. So I purchased it. The link is on my Padlet. It was $8, and I did make sure it was okay with teachers. Some of them are like, skip your homework for the day, skip your morning work. So I always tell the kids, and I actually edited it to say that, make sure you check with your teacher first, right? But there's so many of them that the kids love. One of them I added was lunch with me and a friend, which has been awesome because I've gotten to meet with kids that normally maybe I really wouldn't get to meet with that much because there's really nothing going on with them that necessitates me jumping in. It's been great. It is kind of a lot for me, but I've really enjoyed it, and I just have to, they have to schedule it with me. I'm going to add Visit Bill the Bunny. So Bill the Bunny is coming up, I think, on the next slide. He is a key instrument to my success. He's great. So we'll talk about him. But if you are looking for something that's very low cost, some of them, I have a gumball machine so kids can, choose gum. There's a hat pass. There's go all day with your shoes off, like just very simple things that don't cost money that kids are really excited about. Even our 5th graders have been excited about it. So that's been fun. That's one of our systems that we use. We also have a claw machine. So I have a lot of crazy ideas, and the claw machine was one of them. And Dr. Blair was like, no, ma'am. I cannot afford a claw machine. We are not getting a claw machine. This was several years ago. But I kept pushing the issue. Thankfully, he and I have a very good working relationship, so he did not mind that. And eventually, he was able to get a claw machine donated. So that was so great. So that is something that is really unique to our school. So basically, and I fully understand that not everyone can get a claw machine, right? But we can scale this. And I'll talk about that in a minute to what that might look like. But what I love is that in order to get to use the claw machine, you have to get a coin. Every person, every grown-up in the entire school has a coin. Every janitor, every cafeteria worker, every EA, every teacher, everybody has a coin. Dr. Blair typically tries to do about one a month. And so if they see a student that really demonstrates excellent kindness, responsibility, or respect, they give that student their coin. And at the end of the month, we call them down to the claw machine. So the claw machine ends up, there's little rings in there, it picks a number, and then we have lockers next to it, and the lockers have prizes in them. I do still have some actual prizes, not just coupons. I really got those donated. I honestly reached out to the parents and was like, hey, I know you have a lot of trinkets type stuff at your house that you do not want anymore. I know you have that. Send it to me. And I got lots of great stuff, birthday party leftovers, all kinds of things. So that, along with the coupons, is what's in those lockers. So if they pull a 3, they get to go to locker number 3. And honestly, the real thrill of it is really like just, getting recognized and getting to come down and do the claw machine. It's super fun. So yes, you may not be able to get a claw machine. I also purchased, though, which anybody can do, one of those spinning wheels, which is on top of the claw machine, and we use that for like our secret number. So if you get a number 5, you get to pick from any locker. But if you don't have a claw machine, that could be your claw machine, right? You could spin the wheel, and if you get a number 7, you get to pick from prize compartment number 7. It's just fun and different, and the kids like it, and they get really excited when the janitor, noticed something that they did and recognized them for it. And I feel like our staff appreciates it because everybody gets a chance to recognize kids. It's not just teachers. So it's been great for us. So however you can scale that, that's been a really helpful school-wide system. All right, so moving on to individual counseling connection system. So I mentioned morning meetings. I do those in August and September with every student. I have a Microsoft form that I use. You can duplicate it. It's on that Padlet that I spoke about, and you can make any changes that you want. But that is really great for connection. That is where I find out whose parents have gotten divorced, whose fish died, whose whatever happened, good and not so great, right? So that really helps me. I did have a question, and I changed it. Do you need to meet with Mrs. Puffer individually about anything? And I think I had like 217 kids that said yes. And I was like, why did I ask that? So, word to the wise, I do not ask that anymore. I just make a note to myself, pull this kiddo, right? Because although I would love to meet with all 217 of you, there is one of me, and I cannot do that so much at the beginning of the year. So I do make a note for myself, but it's been really helpful. I use for the littles, I use a little sheet, smiley faces, straight face, sad face, point to that. That's been super helpful for me. You can use with the older kids, obviously, you can use a little bit of a more advanced scale. Individual counseling referrals, we also have a system for that. I have a mailbox. That's been really fun. I've figured out that kids don't even know how to use a mailbox anymore. I have to tell them, when you put mail in, put the flag up. Otherwise, Ms. Puffer doesn't know I have mail. And so I have a mailbox. They can drop me a note. This is linked on my Padlet. I have a little sheet. I go over in that morning meeting video at the beginning of the year how to access, this is all stuff I talk about, how to access Ms. Puffer and what is an emergency, right? Because everything is an emergency, but not really. So we talk about that. What constitutes a tornado problem versus a rainy problem that maybe we can try to solve ourselves. So I have the mailbox system. I teach the kids at the beginning of the year how to do email. We start that about in 4th grade. I did do 3rd grade last year as well. I also have a referral that I've linked onto my website that kids can click on, and then that will come to my email, and that will tell me that they need to talk to me. So that's been really helpful. I try to be very mindful. I can't always do it, but I found that the teachers have really appreciated. I have a list of when are the best times for each teacher, each grade, for me to pull kids. I really try to stick to that. They understand if it's an emergency, I cannot. But that has really helped, because my first year I didn't do that, and they were not real happy with me about that. So I've really tried to do that, and that's really helped. Teacher follow-up data, QR. Oh, Amy, was this you? Were you the QR code lady? Like you scan the QR code when you've met with a student? I really wanted to give credit to the person in Rutherford County that came up with that, because it's amazing.
It was not me.
It was not me. It was
not
Amy.
me.
If it was you.
I think it was Shawneen.
Shawneen, okay, Shawnene's amazing. So I just wanted to mention this because I am not good at data tracking. I'm really trying to be better at it. someone had a wonderful idea to create a QR code that links to a form and put it on your badge, right, on the back of your badge, because we always have our phone, we always have our badge. So when you meet with a kid, even if it's in the hallway or whatnot, you scan your little QR code, and then it comes up on your phone, and you can just put name and presenting issue, right? And then later you can go back and fill in more information. That was like, oh, when someone said that, I'm like, that is something I can do, right? So that was very helpful. If you don't know how to do that, you can email me, catch me later. I can definitely help you do that. I did not know how to do that either, and then I figured it out. So that has been really helpful to log sessions with kids, and that's been a game changer. All right, so 10-ish tools. If you were to pick some tools, these are the ones that I love. Top right, that is my ace in the hole right there. That is Bill the bunny. Bill is an actual bunny. He is living, breathing, and I do realize that maybe you can't have a bunny, but even if you have a stuffed animal. Before Bill the bunny, I had a puffer fish, which was not real. It was stuffed, and it was great. It solved so many tears, and my little friends would keep it with them, and it was great. But Bill is seriously amazing. And again, that's a whole nother session on, he's not a certified therapy bunny, but I will argue to my death that he is amazing. My greatest demonstration of that would be a little friend that I had several years ago. It was field day. She was in 4th grade, and my principal called me in and had the look of like something is really wrong, right? And he said, I just got a call, only child, the 4th grader. Her dad was just killed in a car accident. Bless you. Mom is on the way over and would like you to tell her with mom, which nothing prepares you for that. And it was horrific. And that child had such a strong relationship with this rabbit that over the summer, I would take the rabbit to her house to bunny sit with me or for me. And it was amazing. And like I don't know that anything I ever could have said or done would have ever replaced what that rabbit meant to her. It was just amazing. And so if you have any kind of leeway, I personally think rabbits are the best. But I realize what that takes to care for them. But if you can get a pet, they are really a game changer. I mean, I have had kindergartners that I have had to walk into school almost kicking and screaming, but the minute I say, let's go see Bill the bunny, it's like, okay, and we're good. Like everything is okay. I mean, it has been a game changer. So he's probably my number one. He is at my house right now, not my husband's favorite thing. He has his own like apartment area at our house. He's chewing the baseboards all up, but it can all be fixed. But my husband is a good man and tolerates it. Bill is a senior bunny. I've had him for 7 years, so he's about 8. And I know that the day is coming, and it will be a very hard day for all of us, but really and truly, he's amazing. He could have his own presentation. All the rest of these are linked on my Amazon page. Most of them are from Amazon, linked on my counseling Padlet. But if I was gonna pick just a handful of tools, these are the ones that I use the most. I've got stress balls, a gumball machine. Down here, this is a visual timer. This is great for our kids who have executive functioning issues. Much better than a countdown timer, which I feel like kind of freaks them out. And so I use that a lot. The mini trampoline and the jumping stone path are great. Sometimes teachers will just send a friend up with a note, that's paperclip. That's not really a note. It just says Miss Puffer, and I open it. There's nothing in it. It's just like, you just need to take this kid for a little bit so I can have a moment. And so those friends very much benefit from the trampoline and the jumping path. We've got kinetic sand. I love kinetic sand. The big box, some people, I am not. I'm the person that all of the colors of the Play-Doh could get mixed up, and I'm good with that, and I know that horrifies some people. So if you are not that way, you may not want the big kinetic sand, but they have these little tiny individual kinetic sands that you can sit and talk with a friend and each play with the sand. It's much less awkward than just sitting and talking. And I also have some to give away. So think of a question We call this extrinsic motivation, right? Because if you ask a question, you will get your own sand at the end. So those are great. This paper shredder, we use, I got this from the responsive counselor. I watched her present at a conference. She has a lot of my money. She talked about shredding your worries away. So kids love that. If they're worried about something, they write it down and they through the paper shredder. It's been great. The brain, we talk a lot at McFadden about your brain and how to grow your brain and failure and how it's good, and because things are hard and kids get frustrated. And so a lot of our kids, if you ask them, they can probably talk to you about the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. And we go all into, flight, fight, and freeze and what to do. And so that model of the brain has been super helpful. This is a little flip chart where they identify their feelings, and we can talk about what they can do. I also have that on the table that I use for counseling. That was from the Little Spot, one of the Little Spot books, where they can pick how they're feeling. Naming their feeling is super important. If you have not ever used the Little Spot books by Diane Alber, they are awesome. There are so many of them. The ball in the corner is one of those breathing balls that right? And kids love that if they're having trouble, if they're really anxious. I can get them to calm down a lot with that visual reminder of how to breathe. At the bottom here, this is just kind of an organizational tool for me. If it's paper, I do not like filing cabinets. I have to put it in one of these little plastic containers, and it has to have the month on it, because typically that's how I do the same things in August, September, October in terms of the paper that I might need for it. So that's been really helpful. The invisible string, I will try to talk about that. That is my #1 book for grief. My very dear friend passed away in November, and she was a mom of one of our students. We did Girl Scouts together. And she battled for 6 years with ovarian cancer and lost the battle. So her daughter is an only child and is going to be in 3rd grade. Very, very good friends with my daughter. So very deeply connected we have been. And I took that book to my little friend in hospice when Mom was in hospice. And that book was so transformational to her that she had her dad read an excerpt from that book at her mom's funeral. It is a beautiful story about how we are all connected. There is a reference to heaven, so you do have to know your child. It's an easy page to skip if that is not in their belief system. But if I were to pick a book where that's what I was going to use, it would be that one. There's also a workbook that goes along with it that she and I started working through a little bit, and it's beautiful. So that is just an awesome resource for kiddos that are dealing with grief. Okay, classroom counseling and some things that I do for connection-wise there. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have a mini rotation. I am very thankful not to be in the full rotation. I have 3rd monthly. I keep them for an hour, and I do kind of a fun thing where they earn time to go outside on the back end of that. And the teachers love that because they have an hour together to plan. And so that's been working really well. 4th and 5th, with 4th grade, we do a whole executive functioning series. So I spend a lot of my time with 4th grade at the beginning of the year. And then 5th grade, we do a big middle school transition series. So I spend a lot of my time with 5th grade at the end of the year. Again, I use Canva. I put a sample lesson on there. I was a teacher. So for me, it was a jump going from 7th grade to kindergarten. After I taught the first kindergarten lesson, I thought, what have I done? That was a train wreck. But what I figured out was that it is a system, right? And I had to get that system down. So now I have a very established system that I use for my classroom, and it's very routine-based. We talk about the expectations. We talk about what that looks like in Ms. Puffer's class. Literally every class. We take just a few minutes and review that. That's been huge for classroom management. They also get to earn throughout I do 40-minute lessons. They get to earn BILL. And if they earn BILL, then on the way out the door, they get to pet Bill. And that is like the hugest thing ever because they love him. And so I hold him and they pet him and they think that's awesome. I have flexible seating in my room. That's why you didn't see a lot of seats, because I have a lot of wobble chairs and things that I put out. That has been really helpful because when we need to implement flexible seating with kids in their classroom, they already sort of have experimented with that in my class. And I can say, ooh, yeah, a wobble chair for that friend is not a good idea. Let's try something else, right? Let's try a wobble disc or something on their chair. So that's been really helpful. And then at the end, I do breathing. We practice breathing and mindfulness, and that has really helped. And then I do what's called a rainbow review. So that's a really easy way to do like a post-test. This was also given to me by, I think, Charles C., who is not in our district anymore, but it was awesome. She shared it, and it basically, I ask a question, and they get a stripe of the rainbow every time. And honestly, y'all, if I am running out of time and I'm like, okay, it's time to go, we didn't do the rainbow review, like it's huge. They love that thing. So that has worked really well. Very informal way to survey, did they get what I was putting out there? I use a doorbell we do a lot of turn and talk, mix, pair, share, partner work. So when I need their attention, I use a doorbell. And I put some puppets up there. I think those are about 40 years old. Those have been there forever. I felt so ridiculous using puppets the first time. I was like, I cannot do this. This is so ridiculous. But they love it. Even the older kids. I used them up to about 3rd grade, and my 4th graders were like, where are the puppets? And I'm like, oh, guys, this is so embarrassing. I do not want to keep using these puppets. But they love it. So puppets have been a great resource for me. Family support and connection. So I have, like I said, that parent Padlet. I have that linked at the bottom of my email where so anybody can find it, and I also try to push it out as much as I can. I try to push a lot of things out on my Padlet and also on Dojo so that parents will have access to that. And I've linked my parent Padlet, so if you wanted to create one, feel free to borrow mine and just redo it however you want. Something I started a couple years ago was virtual coffee with the counselor. That is one good thing that came out of COVID is I figured out how to do Zoom, which I didn't even know what Zoom was. So this I created on Canva. So if you're not familiar with Canva, that looks super fancy, right? But it was not hard to create. So I created that on Canva. I publicized that, and I had a wonderful showing of parents that came to my Zoom coffee with the counselor. So they were wherever they were, they jumped on at that time. I recorded it for parents who could not jump on at that time. I have linked my entire presentation on the School Counseling Collaborative Padlet, so you can just take my name off, put your name on, and change whatever applies to your school. It has really helped them understand. I talked about a lot of the things here, because some of the kindergartners were coming home and talking about Energy Bus, and they're like, you went on a bus? Why did no one tell me? We don't have buses at our school. So that was like a huge, like, no, it's not a real bus, right? So we talk about all those things. We just covered a lot. It was really great. It's geared toward new families, but you could do it. I had a dream, maybe I'll try it this year, to do several of these and cover different topics like anxiety and different things, test preparation and stress relief before testing, but I haven't gotten there yet. But ideally, I would love to do one a quarter because it was really well received and I felt like it went really well. And again, that's something you could easily do. You could also do it in person, but I really like the Zoom option because I feel like I had a much greater audience that would not be able to attend if I had done it another way. All right, systems for teacher and staff support and connection. So again, I have a staff Padlet that I have for our teachers. That's where I put all my morning meeting things. They know when they need something from Ms. Puffer, they just go to that Padlet. They don't have to look for it. They don't have to ask me for it. They just go there and that's where it is. I also have a lot of different interventions that I put on there so that if they're struggling with this, they can go there and look and, oh, well, I haven't tried this yet, right? So that's been helpful for them. It took me a while, obviously coming in after someone who's been there for so long, but I really feel like a huge part of my relationship with them has just been that trust, right? They know that they can come in and talk to me. I have an open door policy. Last year, we did have sort of a fruit basket turnover. A lot of every teacher was moved to a different grade level and or subject. And that was a lot for them. And a lot of that needed to happen. And I think at the end of the year, they figured out, wow, that I see now the vision where that came from, but that was really hard. Really hard. And so last year, I felt like maybe I was as much of a counselor for the teachers as I was for the students. But that's okay, because I think we're in year 2 now, and we're gonna be even better. So I've tried really hard to establish that rapport with them. I do try to request feedback. That's really hard because, you know, you have to be able to take that constructive criticism, and I was not very good at that initially and was sort of defensive, but I have gotten much better at that, so I feel like they appreciate that. When I ask them, like, what can I do better? How can I change? You know, that's how I figured out, like, yeah, me going in the middle of your English lesson to pull a kid is not great for you. And so you need me to not do that anymore. I try really hard also to do staff shout outs. I don't know, I have a lot of flexibility by my principal to send staff-wide emails. I know that not everybody has that, but I try really hard, at least once every week or 2 weeks, to just send an email like, hey, I was in 2nd grade and it is so awesome what they are doing, where the kids are earning money and then they got to have a glow party and buy glow items. Like, that is so cool. The kids were so excited. Way to go, 2nd grade, right? So they really appreciated that, because who doesn't want to be told what they're doing well? And we don't always have time for that, but I try really hard to make that a priority, and I've gotten good feedback that they've really appreciated that. I do grade level check-ins. I try to email them. One thing that I'm really bad at is short emails, as you've probably known by the amount of words that I have. So I try really hard just to make it really short. Hey, what friends do you need help with? What can I do for you? Do you want to meet with me, right? And so they feel like if they don't need me, they're like, we're good, Puff, no worries, right? But if they need to meet with me, then that's kind of their window to be able to do that. I do a lot of work. We have different behavior problems, right? Like, I'm not gonna lie and say that I have the same fires to put out as all of you. Absolutely not. We have different behavior problems in a magnet school, and I'm thankful for that. Back from where I started, right? It doesn't look like that. But I try to be very present. I'm the one creating all the charts and doing check-in, check-out, and writing social stories. And I really try to give them as much of that as I can, because I've been in the classroom and I know what that's like. And I know that it's huge if you can just help that one friend. So I try to be really present within what I can do. How many of you have used Magic School? Magic School? Okay, good. All right, that's been really helpful. If you have to write a social story, I was writing them all from scratch. It was taking forever. I just tried to put one into Magic Story, and it was wonderful. It was a great tool. It did so much of the work for me, and then I just went back and tweaked it. So it was really helpful. You tell it what you want. You tell it the teachers' names and what they teach. It was really great. So I encourage you to check that out if you do social stories. I try to always follow up as much as I can. Obviously, with regards to confidentiality, I have to be careful with that. But with student issues and the student support team referrals, and then the school counselor administrator relationship. I am very lucky that I have an awesome administrator. He's great. It is not hard to have a great relationship with Clark Blair, because he is wonderful. It is not hard to have a great relationship with Andy Roach, our assistant principal, because he is also wonderful. I have worked with principals that I have not seen eye to eye with. I think that is hard, and I think other than going to a different school, I think what you could try to do, and maybe what might help, is I've always tried to just be solutions-based. Like, if I'm gonna come to you with this is the problem, then I will always have a solution to that problem. Now, it may not be the solution that gets chosen. It may not be a solution that they like, but I always try to have some type of solution. And that has worked for me when I have worked with principals that maybe I haven't been as closely connected with. Data collection is the final piece here, and I am working on this. We talked about that QR code. That was really big. I encourage you to do that if you're looking for ways to track students and meeting with students. That was a big one. That SST referral form, if you don't have some type of a group like that at your school, a student support team, I highly encourage you to do that and really make that data tracking piece part of it. Because again, not only, of course, we all know how much academic data we track, but what we really care about, what our people care about, is that social, emotional, and behavioral piece. And so that's been huge for us, that right there. The minute meetings, again, I do that on a Google form, which is linked on that Padlet, so you can copy it, change it. I found that to be the easiest, to just input that into my computer, and then I have a spreadsheet. I can look at that. That's a huge way for me to be able to know what's going on with different kids. We use SRSS-IE in Rutherford County to track internalizing and externalizing behaviors. I know maybe not every county does that, but you could honestly do your own version of it. Now, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because sometimes I'll have a teacher that ranks everybody as high risk, and usually that means that teacher's a little bit stressed, right? So you have to really take it with a grain of salt, but it is helpful so that kids are not falling through the cracks. I can go to that teacher and say, oh, this one was flagged by you, not by me. I'm not familiar with this friend yet. Tell me what's going on here. It tracks things like, their level of anxiety, which is high at our school. We have the highest numbers in internalizing behaviors, not externalizing. We don't have as many incidents of fighting or stealing or things like that, but internalizing is high for us. So that's where I focus a lot of my energies, is trying to get those numbers down and provide supports for that. Parent and teacher surveys, I talked a little bit about that, and feedback forms, that's another way that I get data. There is a form that I push out to parents at the beginning. It's linked on that Padlet. It is completely optional because I ask a lot of personal questions, so they do not have to fill it out. But it was truly remarkable when I read through that to find out from the parent perspective some things about that kiddo. Even I asked one question about, when we get to the holiday time, does your family need holiday assistance? And there's some on there that did, that I would not have known that. And then it was beautiful because there was other families that said, no, but we would like to help a family who does. So that was great. So then I was able to really help some families, whereas maybe I wouldn't have if I hadn't asked the question. So there are a lot of personal questions that I ask, but it's completely optional, so they don't have to do it. But it was really enlightening. And so again, that is linked down there, and you are welcome to copy that form and edit it to your needs. Pre and post tests, I'm super bad at this, but I am trying to do better. I did use Magic School for this, and I do 7 habits with my 3rd grade, and I created a pre-test, and I did enter it in there, and it gave me actually a fairly decent pre-test. I just had to go in and tweak it, and then I did a post-test of it, and that was good for some data. Super easy way to get data is if you're doing lessons and just use happy sad sticks. I made them myself. One has a smiley face, one has a sad face. And that's just a really easy way to track if the littles are understanding what you're teaching as well. And then we talked about that rainbow review, which again, you just insert into your PowerPoint. Is very, very simple to facilitate, and it really tells you, are the kids getting it or are they not? Okay, so if you want to scan, we're gonna leave this up here for a minute. If you're not familiar with QR codes, just point your phone at that and open your camera, and it should link to the School Counseling Collaborative Padlet. And in a minute, we'll pull up that Padlet if we can, once everybody has a chance to grab it. And then you can kind of see the different things. And my hope is that you'll have at least something that we've talked about that you can use. Thank you so much. So this is a Padlet. Again, the parent Padlet that I created is here. So if you click on that, it will go to all the resources that I have for the parents that are, it's sort of like an online file cabinet. So that's that. And then I have my presentation if you need it, my contact info. Please feel free to reach out to me. I know I covered a lot of information, and I am from the north originally, and I talk sort of fast, and I realize that. So if there's anything that's unclear, you are welcome to email me or call me at school. I love to help people because I love what we do, and I think we're important to people, and I don't feel bad about saying that. I think we're very important, and I think our work is important, and I think we need to work together to be the best that we can be, because if not, we will be completely overwhelmed. Lesson, you'll see an example of my lessons that I do. I think I put a classroom lesson, an energy bus lesson. If we can scroll over to the right, you'll see some Microsoft Forms. Those are all the different ones I talked about that you can duplicate. And then if you scroll all the way over, you will see the Teacher Pay Teachers links that I referenced. My presentation is here. If you want the Canva that I created, I will be happy to send you that. In fact, if I can remember, when I go home, I'll link that up here as well. And then some of the other links I mentioned, like the first 5 to push out to your teachers for morning meetings, that is wonderful, and my teachers were super grateful for that. And then there's that rainbow review that I talked about at the end of for using at the end of your lesson, or just to kind of as a post-test. So that was a lot. Thank you all so very much. I am going to open it up, I think, for questions, if Dr. Wilson wants to help with that. And I do have extrinsic motivation. You know that you would like to play with some sand. So if you have a question or even a comment.
I do have a question. You said you were very mindful about not pulling children out of the classroom when they're in different subjects.
Right.
I came from the classroom. I know how hard that is to have a student miss something. I'm a high school counselor now, and we have that same issue of teachers saying this is a tested subject, but it is so hard. I would just love for anybody to share any ideas about how do you pull students when it's not an inconvenience to a teacher?
So please, especially if you're a high school person, that is the one area I have not delved into, so I don't feel like I can speak as effectively on that. I know sometimes I'll pull them during lunch, which I know, high school, again, I know that's tricky. I don't know a high school schedule like I know an elementary. And gosh, our elective teachers, they're my team, they're my people, right? So I also hate to pull them during electives, but sometimes I just beg, plead, and they just know that I have to do that. Does anyone high school-wise have suggestions?
I know that So when I was at a high school, I would usually try to pull at the very end of a subject, right before the transition time, and then they would be a little late to the next class, but that usually was the best time to pull them. And now that I'm at elementary, that's a lot of times, like I'll pull at the end of when they're, usually doing independent work at the end of a lesson of that particular subject or something. And the transition times are really the best times that I've found.
Awesome. Thank you for your participation.
I also know that, I guess y'all can hear me, that pulling them, like, when you don't want to pull them from a tested subject, but you can't always do that. That's just not feasible because we have to have them and get it done. But I know at our school, our counselors are awesome about sending a note from, like, a teacher aide or from, like, an office aide saying, when it's convenient for you, can you send this kid? And that helps. And they take them for shorter amounts of time. That's huge because when I have somebody that takes them for a whole period and I'm like, they didn't get anything. So shortening the time and then even sending a note saying, when it's convenient for you, can the kid come, and send them with the pass. So good job over there, Riverdale counselor.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you. Does anyone else have? Yes, go ahead, sir.
If your school has study hall built into the schedule, what I did is at the start of the semester, I will look at all of my students' schedule. I will create a spreadsheet and list which period they have study hall. Then when I want to see that student, I will just pull them and send a note to the study hall.
Yes, and I know when I was in the middle school, because that's the closest I have to, thank you, to compare it to, my frequent flyers, my friends that often needed me, I would sometimes just put a list together of their teachers and say, hey, we know that this friend legitimately needs the counselor. In order to be present for you all, they legitimately need some services with me. As together, let's come up with what that looks like. So maybe on Mondays, it's someone's class, and maybe the next week, it's a different person's class, so that it wasn't always the same time period. I've done that before as well, and that's worked. Because again, it's that whole hierarchy, right, where they can't be present for learning if their foundational needs are not being met. And so really and truly, yes, those are tested subjects, but wow, we can't get them there if we don't get them way down at the bottom level. So that's a great question. Yes, ma'am. Yep. Here. Thank you.
I'm a school counselor in a middle school. I allow the teachers, like if a student says, I've got to speak to the school counselor, the teacher kind of gets a little bit of tidbit to find out, is it an emergency or not? And the teacher, if they feel that it is an emergency, that they need to come see me, then the teacher will text me, because I may be anywhere in the building, and say, hey, I've got a student that really needs to talk to you right now. It's okay for them to come to you. If that teacher feels like by the small conversation that they have, it's not a true emergency, it's just they need to speak with you, but it's not right now, they send me an email, kind of give me that little tidbit of what's going on. I usually try to pull them out of their elective, or like she said, if it's one that's on a normal, I see them, several times, then I do rotate the teachers so they're not constantly out of one classroom all the time. Social studies and science, I try not to do so much because they're 45-minute classes versus 90-minute classes for my English and math classes.
Yes, awesome, thank you. Oh, yes, did you have a different question?
Just a quick question.
Perfect, yes ma'am.
It's just a tech
and then we'll come to you,
question.
yeah.
For those of us that aren't familiar with Padlet, how do I get back to this?
Yes. So this will be, if you go to the website for the Center for Educational Media that they showed before, all of the presentations are linked down there already. And so if you just run my presentation, this will pop back up again. And if you want to view this on your computer, what you can do is you can take, like if you're viewing it on your phone, you can copy that email address or that website address and email it to yourself. And then you can view it on your desktop, which is much easier. I do like to view it on here. Like my parents sometimes like to view it on there, but it's much easier to view on a desktop. And then you can add and manipulate and all those things. My Padlet is viewing only, but you can certainly create your own Padlet and make these exact same categories and do whatever you want with it. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Did you have a question?
It was about one of your tools.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think she has a question. And then I've got a friend over here. A friend, sorry.
So I'm elementary
Yes.
counselor as well, and I noticed you had the gumball machine. It was one of your tools. How do you use that within because that was one of your must-haves. So I was kind of curious how you use that.
One of my coupons is a gumball, right? I try to be mindful of the little ones. I know not everybody gives their children gum. I did. Just to be honest, I wasn't really that big into not, but I do ask at the beginning of the year with especially the kindergartners, just so I kind of know who can't, and then I'll try to steer them in another direction. So if they get that coupon for Mustang of the Month or whatever we're giving it out for, that's one time that I use it. I'll be really honest, if I have a kid that's having a rough day, sometimes they just need a gumball. And that fixes it, and we're good with that. I am not above that. So I use it for a lot of different things. I specifically make it gum and not Skittles or M&Ms because I don't really like gum, so I won't eat it if it's gum. But our art teacher uses Skittles, and that is also very helpful because sometimes Skittles fix a lot of things. We also have a teacher who uses mints for kids that are a little anxious. She's amazing. She was our teacher of the year this year, and that's been really helpful. So that's something I now try to keep, especially for the older kids, because that can just really help sort of bring them down a little bit.
Our nurse was using mints, but then everybody was going to the nurse.
Oh, but then everybody wanted mints. Of course. Yes, absolutely. I think I've neglected this side. I'm sorry.
So
yes, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question
Yes.
also. And thank you, because this is a lot of great information. And
Good.
as a high school person, I've been able to translate most of it.
Good.
The one question I have is, and it's fine to open it up to the room too,
Sure.
the calm down corner. Yes. I've seen it so effective with my son's elementary school.
Yes.
But we've tried it at an alternative school where everybody needs to calm down.
Yeah.
And
That is why they're there.
the teachers end up in the calm down corner.
Absolutely.
and the
They need
kids
their
don't.
own calm down corner. Yes.
But how do you get that to really work at a high school where escapism is what most students are doing, which is why they're with you in the first place?
Sure. So I'll say one thing, and then I'm going to open it up to the high school people. I saw a high school, it was a video at a conference, and what they did is they actually made mindfulness and breathing part of every single day, and they taught everybody how to do that. And it was mandatory, right? It was almost like we're having morning announcements and now we're having morning breathing time. Because what we found is that if you don't, you can say, slow down your breathing, take a breath. But if they don't know how to do that, and if they haven't practiced it, then in the moment when they are completely overwhelmed and panicked, they will not be able to retrieve that skill. So I would say that would be huge in terms of teaching every single child and teacher in the building what that is and how to do it. And, so at that point when we have breathing and mindfulness, the lights are off, maybe we're playing some music, and nobody feels weird because everybody's doing it. So now it's a skill that I can access. I don't know necessarily that you'd have to have like a little tent, that might look more elementary, but I think if you can teach that skill and have a time every single day where it's practiced and that is a non-negotiable, I think that would probably translate maybe to high school. Does anyone else high school have some suggestions? Yes, ma'am.
I had in my room, it was called Le Café Douai. That's not my name now, but anyway, Le Café Douai, and it was like a bar stool with like the little bar table, so it almost looked like you were going to happy hour. And I had a child that had really bad anger issues, and everybody in that class, like she said, did not like each other because they all came from her school. I'm being honest. They all put them in one class together, so they don't get along. But I would just make it where they understood when you're having a bad day, if you need to go in the back of the room and pace back and forth for a minute, go for it. If you're having a bad day and need to go back there and sit for so many minutes or the whole period because you just can't be around them right now, you just need to be back here, but they're still engaged, then I was okay with it. But it's almost like, it was like a privilege, but it was also like she actually cares about my feelings and she understands, and I don't have to get mad and like storm out of the school and then start skipping because that's what they would do. They'd go home.
And I think that's a great strategy because if we think about it, I'm always the one, you'll probably see it later, that's at the back of the room. I cannot sit still. So I can't really sit. So I'm the one at the back of the room during conferences that's going back and forth. So I think if we teach our teachers, like that's okay. As long as what I tell the little ones, it's a tool, not a toy. It's a tool, not a toy. If I give you a stress ball and it becomes a toy, that is not okay anymore. And at any level, if we teach it as a tool, not a toy, then at that point, if they use that tool correctly, that's wonderful. That's what we want them to do so they stay in class, just like we all use the tools that we have. But we have to be taught those and we have to practice them. And I have ignored this side. I'm so sorry. Yes, ma'am.
I am a school counselor for elementary of 701 kids by myself. You have morning meetings in August and September with every student. Will you elaborate on that? Because I would love to get to know more than just my frequent flyers, but 701.
Yes, all by yourself. So I'm at 390 by myself. So you have a lot more, right? So there's that, number one. Are you in the rotation?
No.
Okay, so that's great. So what I do is at the beginning of the year, from the very beginning, from the very first day, I send all the teachers an email and I say, I need to meet with everybody's class at some point in August and September. I usually try not to do more than 2 a day because I have lots of other things that I'm doing, and I'll have a sign-up genius, right? And I'll say, you tell me what day and you tell me what time. And what I need that to be is I need it to be about 45 minutes, and I need it to be at a time when you've done your instruction and they're working independently, or you've done your instruction and they're silent reading, right? So they get to choose the day and they get to choose the time, but they know what that looks like. And then I sit outside their classroom and I just pull them one at a time. And I tell them before, all right, guys, this is how it's gonna go. This is really quick. Ms. Puffer wants to hear all your stories, but this is not really the time for all the stories, right? So I try to make it so that they know that this is not a really long conversation, but if we need to have longer conversations, then I'll make a note of that, but that this is really quick and that this is how I need this to go. So some teachers will say, you guys know your numbers. When number 1 comes back, you tap number 2 on the shoulder and they go. Or sometimes I have the class list and they prefer for me to say, okay, send Billy out, please. Okay, send Johnny out, please. What I do have to keep track of is the kids that are absent. And I just try my best on that. But I feel like if you space it out for whatever's reasonable for you, I mean, quite honestly, you could do August, September, October, November, right? Like you can take as long as you need. But I like to do it where I send the sign-up genius out and I put 2 slots for each day. And I just say to them, you tell me the time, I need a 45-minute window, and then you pick what day and you sign up. That way I'm not having 17 classes in one day. I can only reasonably get to 2 classes in a day with all the other things I have to do, especially at the beginning when you have kids that cry and all the other things. So that's the system I use and it's worked really well. If you need to lengthen it though and go longer, I would say just take as much time as you need. Just make it work for you. Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I've been an elementary through high school counselor, and currently I'm in high school. You talked about puppets.
Yes.
I currently have a puppet.
Oh, I love that.
It's an orangutan.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm a high school counselor, and I use an orangutan in my office. It's a huge puppet, and in case you're not aware of where you can, because I have quite a few puppets, actually, since I've been elementary through high school, you can get it through Folk Manus at half price. At least I did, but you have to get it online, and you have to be considered like a clinician, which we are. And so, I mean, I have quite a few, but I found the high school kids love the orangutan, and the orangutan has gone around during lunch, and it has been the most selfied puppet I've ever had.
It's like your mascot.
Yeah, seriously, and because he talks to them, they pet him when they come in with a lot of anxiety. He's sitting on my chair, that they can sit in. They sit there and they pet him because it just helps calm and soothe them down. I've even had adults doing the same type of thing. So, I mean, since I can't necessarily have a rabbit, you have to find out what type of puppet. And again, he's good size. So he's not teeny tiny. He's good size. So, I mean, the puppets work at every age.
I love that. I love that you do that for high school. Thank you for sharing. That's great.
Great. So my question is, I love all of these systems. I was just curious what your process is on rolling out new systems to like staff to get them to understand. Like, do you do it in person? Is it like a follow-up, just like that overall process?
Sure, absolutely. So my principal is really good about giving me time at the beginning of the year to do presentations for the staff. So he'll say, what do you need? And he, again, knows how many words I have. So he'll be like, I can give you time, but you only have 30 minutes, Sarah. So I try to be really mindful of that. But I have found that rolling it out in person in front of them is much more helpful because they are just bombarded with things that they have to do and trainings that they have to do, especially at the beginning of the year. So I usually do it in person. I'll create a Canva. I try to make it as concise as I can. And then I'll do follow-ups. Like I did a follow-up at the end of last year and I said, how are the Peace Corners going? Do you need help? Would you like to meet with me? And I had several teachers that said, yes, I'm not really buying into this fully. I need some help with it. So then I scheduled meetings with those specific teachers because not everyone wanted or needed a meeting. So I always try to follow up, but I think in person is really helpful. And, sometimes I'll also do at the very end like a quick little like Google form, like just maybe 5 questions where I can get feedback from them or comments. And like one of them is always like, is there anything you need from me right now? So that I'm not getting tons of emails, but that I have a place where I can go and see what they need or what they need me to follow up on. But I would say in person at the beginning of the year, if you can grab some of that time, that's ideal. Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned that invisible string book, and I know you also said you had been in a middle school. Would that book work for middle school as well?
Absolutely. I would use that. It's a beautiful story about how we're all connected by strings, and those strings, truly the premise of the story doesn't even have to do with death. It actually has to do with kids that are afraid in a storm, and they have to go to bed and they don't want to be away from their mom. But it's a beautiful story. I worked with a little boy who it was in the summer, but I was friends with their family, and he lost a friend in a car accident, and I used it with him, and he was middle school. I think it became the favorite book of that child that I spoke about, her grandmother, who was the mother of my friend. It's now her favorite book, so I think it transcends generations.
Wow, Ms. Puffer. This has been a great, full, rich session. So thank you for all this information.